all about dachshund puppies. Hi guys, Katie Saywell here from The Dogs Code. So www.thedogscode.com is where you'll find us. And what do? So we are a coaching and training company, and we specifically deal with dachshunds, dachshunds, daxies, doxies, sausage dogs, wiener dogs, however you want to pronounce them. The ones with the short legs and the long bodies. It started a few years back for me. We bought our little puppy, Chip, so she's now 2.5. We bought her home and we realised that bringing a puppy home was actually a lot harder work than we'd anticipated. Having grown up with a Labrador, and Daxies are off the scale. Anyway, so tonight is all about Dachshund puppies. So just some myth breakers, a bit about evolution, where Daxies came from, and a little bit of history about them really. So we'll kick off. We've got a few people watching now, so hi Alex, thank you. So we'll kick off. So we've got two types of Dachshunds. So we've got the miniatures and the standards. We've got 3 coat types. So we've got the smooth haired, the long haired and the white haired. The white haired sometimes get forgotten about. We've got various different colours, although a couple of the colours aren't what we'd class as Kennel Club registered, and aren't recognised by the Kennel Club. So they're your blues and your double dapples. Now there is good reason for that. So they're not a new breed, a new colour rather. They are gene mutations, and they can come with a whole host of problems. So if somebody is selling a puppy and saying it's a sought after colour or that type of thing, please be aware of that and make sure you do your research before purchasing. You might want to have a look into your breeder as well, because they may not be the best breeder to be buying from. That's easy for me to say. So a little bit about the Dachshunds. So people that don't own puppies at the moment who are looking to get one. So they originated in Germany, hence the spelling and the pronunciation. So Dachshund literally translates to badger hound in English. So they were used for hunting. They were used for hunting badgers, strangely enough, and also smaller prey. So in terms of their stature and body size, so they've got nice big deep chests, so they can inhale oxygen, and that gives them stamina while they're underground. They've got the long noses, so the long noses help them to find the scent and keep the odours coming in and the scent being processed. The loud bark, as lots of you will tell me that you experience, and I do myself as well. So the reason for the loud bark is while they were underground, going after the badgers or going after the prey, they bark loud so that the hunters, i.e. the human that's in the field above, would be able to find where they were and dig them out. And ultimately they are super strong, super smart and super fast, which they're underestimated in. And the reason for that is because ultimately their aim was to hunt and to kill badgers if they needed to. So that's a bit about where they came from. I hope you found that interesting. So we'll move on. So we've got a few things. So the main 5 reasons that dogs are being rehomed. So they're not house trained. They're chewing or they're biting. They're noisy at night. They excited, wee everywhere, or they're too loud. So that incorporates the barking. I know that a few of you mentioned in the post earlier on in the week, so thank you very much for commenting at the beginning of the week, and you mentioned separation anxiety, being left in the kitchen while you're going to get ready and hearing you cry. We've got humping in there, and not realising that they are just as demanding as a baby. Yeah, welcome to the world of Dachses. We've also had a question of to neuter or not to neuter. We'll cover these as we're going through the video. So to start with puppies, so we'll go right back to puppy being born. So there are 4 stages. So we have a neonatal stage, which is from birth to 14 days. We have a transitional stage, which is 14 to 21 days. And we have a socialisation stage, which is 3 to 12 weeks. And we have an adolescence stage, which is 8 to 48 weeks. So I'll just break those down. So the first stage, the neonatal stage, is basically when they're born. So they're born with their ears and their eyes sealed. And the reason for this is because they would be damaged if light and sound was if they were to be exposed to light and sound at that stage. The mum communicates with them through touch. I hope everyone could still hear me. It's said I've got a poor connection, so I do apologise for that. And they are born with what's called a rooting reflex. So they can wobble around a bit and they can find mum and they can feed from mum. So that's something that's already ingrained into them. The transitional stage, so this is where their eyes are opening. So this is 14 to 21 days. So when their eyes are opening and they can move away from mum a little bit more. So not necessarily independence as such, but moving away, giving mum a little bit more space. And they can also move slightly away from the actual bedding area to go to the toilet in a different place. So I'm not suggesting that they're going to walk outside and go to the toilet, but a few paces away from mum, away from the bed area, so that they can go to the toilet. So socialisation, so it's a critical socialisation stage at 3 to 12 weeks. And during this period of time, they should be exposed to... Thank you, Karen. I'll come back to you in a sec. Let me just go through this stage and then I'll come back to you. If you have got any questions, do pop them in. I can see them and I will read them. It does just like I'm going to go and headbutt the phone, but obviously I'm not. So the socialisation stage, 3 to 12 weeks, it is critical at this point that puppies are socialised. And that's not necessarily taking them out. Obviously they'd be too young. So starting with exposing them to sounds in the house, so they can hear by this point. They'll be able to hear the vacuum cleaner, they'll be able to hear the washing machine, they'll be able to hear opening and closing of the doors, they'll be able to hear the cat, the dog, whatever other animals it is. They'll be exposed to these things. So these are the things that we don't necessarily think about as being socialisation. The sound of the TV, the sound of the radio, whatever it is, the sounds and the noises that we don't ordinarily think about, but are generally noises that are in our environments. Then we have the adolescent stage, which is generally the point where we become puppy owners. So 8 to 48 weeks. So generally you pick your puppies up between 8 to 10 weeks. And obviously what we have to remember is they're in this socialisation stage as well. So during adolescence, as with humans, they go through lots of different body changes. So they also have fear stages between up to 12 to 14 months, but we will come back to that in a sec. So in terms of the adolescence type of info, so after your puppy's kind of grown and they're maturing, they will have a surge of hormones popped into their bodies around about 6 months. It can be a little bit before, can be a little bit after, anywhere up to kind of 9 months, and even longer in some. And what's basically happening is that their organs are developing, their hormones are released into the body, and they're getting ready for sexual maturity. So they're getting ready to find a mate and mate. That can also have problems with ownership as well, because what can also happen... Hi Thomas. What can also happen is they can regress as well. So around 6-ish months, they can regress and they can get really scared of just things that they were never scared of before. So it's about the way that we teach them to that it's okay, and not putting too much pressure on them, and not putting them in too much of a scary situation that it's going to freak them out for the rest of their lives. So we have to be really conscious of this. Obviously, when we bring our puppies home, it's scary in itself. So ideally, when you bring them back from the breeder, you'd want to be seeing a puppy pack with a puppy contract, with some sort of KC registration, vaccinations up to date, with a vet, microchipped, because it's now illegal to sell a puppy without a microchip. And things that you might also want to consider are 4 weeks free insurance. That can come in really handy, because you don't know what's going to happen, and vets aren't cheap, as we probably all know. So if something does go wrong, at least your puppy is covered from the minute you're collecting them and bringing them home. Socialisation of your puppy is sight, smell, sound and touch. Okay, so for sight, that's fairly obvious. So they're going to see things, they're going to see lots of different things, and it's really important to introduce them to lots of different people, lots of different clothing, whether it's a female wearing a hat or a male with a beard, or the postman, the postwoman, everybody and anybody that you can allow them to see, but at a safe distance, so they can just see them. So they just have to see them, they don't have to do anything, they don't have to interact with them at any point during this stage. Smell, obviously they've got a 100,000 times stronger sense of smell than what humans have, and therefore the world to begin with is all based on scent and putting things in the mouth. So whatever they can taste or chew, that's how they explore. Sound and touch, obviously with sound, I've gone through some of those from the household items, but in terms of sound, things right down to the sound that your car engine makes, the sound that your alarm makes in the morning, the sound of your washing machine, because it may be different to where they've come from, or you might have something like a tumble dryer or something like that makes a different noise, the sound of the kettle, the sound of a pan boiling. These may be things that your puppy hasn't been exposed to, that are general everyday things to us, but everything is a new experience for them. So if we could just remember that everything is new, and then we're kind of setting ourselves up on a good way. I'm just going to stop at this point. I'm just going to go through the questions that we've got, because I know we've got one here. So, and I'm just conscious that we've got lots coming in, so I don't want to be missing out what we've written. So thank you, Karen. Really interesting info, thanks. Do you have any advice on allergies? Mine had itchy paws and scratches a lot in the summer. Okay, so Karen, in answer to your question, so I'm not a vet, I'm not qualified to diagnose. So in terms of allergies, if you think it is an allergy, it's probably best to speak to your vet. If it's a seasonal allergy, they may well be able to do some tests for you, which generally come as either a skin scraping, a biopsy, or a blood sample. So have a chat with them. If it only happens at certain times of the year, there are things like grass allergies, pollen allergies, a bit like us that when we suffer with hay fever. I do suffer with hay fever and I've taken lots of tablets today. But I'd be led by your vet in terms of what the allergy may be and what's causing it. One of the biggest causes is grass and pollen, and unfortunately it's the time of the year. Obviously if you wash the feet after they've been out and things, then that will reduce the issues with the itchy paws. Hope that answers that question for you. Thomas has put one on now. So we've got, my boy keeps getting snails in the garden. He hunts for them. Will they do him any harm? Thomas, the answer there is it will depend on what the snail has eaten. So if the snail has been eating slug or snail pellets, then they could be highly poisonous to your dog. So try and avoid letting him do that. If you can find something else to distract him to do in the garden, or just supervise him in the garden, and get maybe a really squeaky toy, something like that, so when he goes to a snail, just squeak the toy and say, come on, this way, or whatever it is that for your cue that you use to get him to come back to you, and make something else more exciting than the snails. And yeah, bloody hell, snails get everywhere, as the slugs. Hope that answers that one for you. So we'll move on. So teething. So this is the big one. There's quite a lot of people that have experienced and will continue to experience our little land sharks biting in the early stages when you get them. So I'm just going to go through the biology side of it. So 2 to 3 weeks their teeth come through, and that ties in nicely with the point that they're moving away from mum a little bit. 6 to 8 weeks they've got a full set of 28 teeth. 8 to 16 weeks their adult teeth start pushing through. So 8 to 16 weeks, so we bring them home between 8 to 10 weeks, and they're just in that prime stage of teething. So most biting is because your puppy's teething. It is excruciatingly painful for them. If you've ever had toothache, or if you've ever had like your wisdom teeth come through, then you'll know just how excruciatingly painful it can be. So be mindful that obviously they are going to be in quite a bit of pain. And when we try and look in their mouths, even just sort of pushing their lip or pulling their lip down, that can be quite painful in itself for them. So it's just something to bear in mind, really. About 6 months. So again, it is an about figure. Just depends on how fast they grow. And like with people, they grow fast. Some people grow faster, some people don't grow at the same speed. Or other people don't grow at the same speed. I was going to say some people don't grow. Some people do grow. So around 6 months, they should have a full set of teeth, which is 42 in total. But they will need to chew. They will need to chew during this period of time. So there's some great chews out of the market that you can get. We find that wetting a tea towel, wet a tea towel, tie it into a knot, stick it in the freezer, and then bring that out and let them chew on that. Also carrots, broccoli, stalks. You can pop them in the freezer and just cool them down, or a frozen Kong. It's just for that soothing, so that they can chew something, but it's something that you've given them rather than them finding themselves. So rather than the table leg, you've given them a piece of carrot, or rather than your hand, you've given them a nice tasty Kong. If you are using a Kong and you are freezing it with something nice and tasty, when you get it out of the freezer, make sure you run it under the tap so that they don't end up with a tongue stuck to it, because that will obviously create you further issues. So what else have we got? So I wanted to mention puppy parties. So I see quite a lot advertised, and I see quite a lot of puppy free play advertised. Be mindful of this when you are taking your puppies to places like that, just because if it is a free-for-all, then your puppy can get quite scared quite fast. If there's a bigger boisterous dog, or your dog is that boisterous dog, then it can have a massive impact on their socialisation. So rather than building their confidence, it can actually have the opposite effect. If you're going to some sort of puppy party, then ask whether it's contact or not contact. The ones that I'll be hosting and running are non-contact, and the reason for non-contact is because, again, it goes back to what we were saying a minute ago about they just need to see, hear and smell. They don't necessarily need to touch the other dogs, and they certainly don't need pinning down by another dog either, because that can just ruin them within one session. So let's just go on to another couple of things. So we've got resource guarding. So how many of you have resource guarders or know what a resource guarder does? Just going to quickly pop through these. So if you don't know what resource guarding is, in its simplest form, it is guarding and protecting something that they see as valuable to them. They can resource guard anything. And it can be the craziest thing. So it can be anything from their food and their food bowl. It can be toys, treats, and people. It can be their beds. It can be the sofa. It can be your bed. It can be any number of things. It's generally a tangible thing. So it's normally a thing rather than a thing rather than something that's like a thought of thing. And what resource guarding is basically is your dog saying, I really, really value this and I don't want you to take it away from me. And the general signs for that is when you go to take something away, they will growl, they may snap at you. They might even bite you if you've pushed them too far, because ultimately dogs will bite. And with resource guarding, that's about creating swaps. So if your dog's got a toy that you want to take off them, rather than snatching it away from them, which makes them want to keep it even more, then you can chuck a treat on the floor, a nice tasty smelly treat on the floor to let them go to that, and then remove the toy. So they're actually making the decision that I've made the decision, I don't want that toy anymore and now I want the treat instead, and that's absolutely fine. Resource guarding is very similar to, have you ever had a meal and you've got your meal and your plate in front of you, you've got your plate of chips or your plate of chips, you've got your plate of your food in front of you and you've got some chips on your plate and someone tries to nick a chip off you and you kind of go, leave my food. That's resource guarding, and that's how humans do it. And you might say, oh, get off, or it might be something a bit stronger than that. But in its simplest form, that's what it is. So it's about figuring out what it is that they're guarding, why they're guarding it, and being conscious and making a reward, making a swap, so that they can still get a reward but something different. So the next thing I want to talk about is treats as currency. So using treats as currency. And what I mean by that is having 3 top treats, it may be a toy, that your dog loves. Okay, so over time you will find out what they love. So ours used to be carrot, but now it's moved on to steak. bit of a different one there. So our top 3 are hot dog sausages, so just normal human hot dog sausages rinsed under the tap to get the salt water off them, chopped up into teeny tiny pieces. Steak, hot dog, and either chicken or duck or liver. She's quite a big fan of liver cake. So what we do is we keep them separate, and the reason we keep them separate is so that they don't all smell the same, because obviously remembering how strong the dog's noses are. Excuse me. We keep them separate, and when we're doing our training we introduce the lower value one first, depending on how fast we want the training to take place. If it's a swap for a resource guarding issue, then we'll use the higher value one. So we'll use the steak rather than the chicken or the third one. I hope that makes sense. I did ask what people's favourite treats were to give to their puppies, and I think we had ham was mentioned, chicken was mentioned, but all great. And when you're training and when you're just introducing or trying to get your pup to do something, just teeny tiny bits, so like half the size of your little fingernail, that's all that's needed. Or you can even just use their own food. So if they're on kibble, you can use the kibble. If they're on raw, then you can use little bits of raw. There's no difference really. But it's about what your puppy wants, not what you want to give them. So it's what they see as being high value and high reward. I'm just going to cover separation anxiety a little bit. So separation anxiety is basically the fear of being abandoned. They don't know that you're going to come back. You know you're going to come back, but they don't know that. So it can, again, it's a little bit like the resource guardian. It can range from mild to extreme. And what we need to try and teach our dachs is that it's okay to be left alone. And this is something that needs to be started early when you're getting them home. So the way that we do this is we'd make leaving them even for a couple of seconds a pleasant experience for them. So whether that's giving them a nice tasty Kong and walking out the room and coming back and they're still eating the Kong, then that is your first one ticked off. And then you can increase your time that you leave them. For starters, there's no harm in taking your dachshund around the house with you, as long as you can supervise them. I know that we used to have Chip in our bathroom with us first thing in the morning. And the reason that we wanted to do that as well was because the sound of the shower, the sound of the back panel, just those sounds again, just to settle her, so she'd have a Kong sat on a mat in the bathroom. So there's not really any reason that you necessarily have to leave them in a different room when they are really young. And you can just increase the time that they're being left in the early stages, so they get used to their own company. You can also put little treats around when you are leaving, if you are leaving for a couple of hours. You can leave little treats around in the areas that they're being left, so they then associate you going with them being able to use their noses and find a little treat around the area they've been left in. And before long, you will have a happy, settled dog, because they'll be like, yeah, you going out yet then? I want some treats. So I hope that answers that for you. Where else have we got? So I think that pretty much covers not realising they are just as demanding as a baby. I don't have babies, but I have many friends that have had babies over the years, and yeah, I'd say with the stories that I'm told about babies, that puppies are pretty much on a level pegging, although we never get to the speech stage, we just get a bark instead. So humping, I do apologise, I do forget who it was that actually wrote about humping, that their Dachshund humps everything and they've never had the dog like it before. With humping, it's often a state of high arousal opposed to humping for a sexual purpose. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Mark. So humping can be that they're just overexcited, they may be overtired and overstimulated. It doesn't have to be in a sexual way. The best way to alleviate the problem is to look at what's going off in the environment. So with whatever is happening, your puppy is probably being overstimulated. So whether it's by being played with too much, whether it's the toy that they're playing with is too stimulating for them, or whether they're just overtired. So if you think about go back to the children, if you have a child that's overtired, they then start misbehaving, and they have to then I forget the word. They have to release that energy somewhere. So with the humping, if you want to go into a bit more detail with me about that, then that's fine. If you want to contact me afterwards. I hope that answers most of your questions that I've been asked. In terms of chewing and biting, so we just need to teach our dogs what is acceptable to chew and bite and what's not. And to do that, we use distraction techniques. So make sure you've got pots of treats around your house for when your dog does bite, when your puppy does bite. And a bite can mean anything, and it means quite a lot of varying scales. So a bite to me is any teeth on your skin. So any form of bite. And what we need to teach our dogs is that it's not acceptable to bite, to have the teeth on skin contact. And to do that, we use distractions. There's various different ways you can do that, whether it's providing a different toy or chew to your dog. So maybe it's that bit of carrot, or maybe it's the Kong, and get them to do that instead, rather than biting your hand or your feet. And I think that is probably about it. So has anyone got any questions that they want to pop into the group? Hey Kelly. I think I've gone through most of the parts on there. In terms of the house training bit, have a look at the previous YouTube video that I did. It is posted into the group, so just have a search through the videos and you'll find it in there, which is about ensuring your dog doesn't pee on the carpet. So have a look for that one. So that will cover the house training one for you. And as with all of the puppy training, really, it's about supervision. It's about control and management. So controlling the area and managing your puppy, whether that's by the use of stair gates or closing doors, or however it is, to keep them in a specific area so they don't have the run of the house to start with. And monitoring what they're doing. If it means keeping a diary, then keep a diary. What we found was really helpful before we got Chip was to write what we want our puppy to be like and what we don't want our puppy to be like. And one of the things that we had on there, which I haven't covered, was begging for food. And we didn't want a dog that begged for food. We wanted to be able to go out, and we wanted to be able to sit with Chip in a pub. I sound like an alcoholic. I'm really not in the pub all the time, I promise you. But most dog walks do end with a pub. Is that just me that's found that? Anyway, so right from the beginning, what we would do is, rather than having Chip sat on our laps, we would give Chip a Kong, or we would give her something to do away from where we were eating. So the association is built that when the pan's boiling, when the cutlery drawer opens, when the plates come out, when the plates are put onto the trays or onto the table, then she goes to a different place to then have something which is rewarding for her. So just to sum up, so we haven't gone through house training because that's in a separate video. We've gone through the different types of Dachshunds. We've gone through the types, coats, colours, where they originated from, so a bit of history. We've gone through the 4 stages of puppies. We've gone through socialisation. We've gone through teething. We've answered a couple of questions that have been on there as well. We've gone briefly through resource guarding and separation anxiety. So if you have got any more questions, then pop them in. If you're watching this on the recorded version, then pop me a comment in, or pop me a paw print, or pop me an emoji in so that I know that you've watched it. If you want to get in touch with me, then you can do via the website, so www.thedogscode.com. If you haven't taken our quiz, then you can take our quiz on there. thanks very much for watching. Oh, thank you, Thomas. That's very kind of you. I'm glad that you've found that there have been some good tips on there, and that it's been helpful. Thank you, Kerry, as well. Oh, you pick your little boy up next week. Oh, how cute. Don't forget to put some photos on. Let us see him with his little name.
Look. Down. Yes, good girl.
Just 28 on our phone.
13th of January.
What's this happy room?
White. Chip. Down. Ready? Down.
Look at me.
Sit.
So yeah, so thanks very much for watching, and yeah, take care, and I'll be back soon. So bye for now.